previous Companies Code and now the new Companies Act made elaborate provisions governing who becomes a board member of an institution and the responsibilities and obligations imposed on such a person as somebody in a fiduciary position, and the processes involved in order for you to be legally appointed to a board, whether you call it a trustee or a governing board or a governing council. And so if you look at what has happened, almost every single procedure, almost every single process to do with our financial governance and our corporate governance has been turned on its head. And that is very, very sad, especially when we have an attorney general, and especially when we have a president who himself is touted as a lawyer. This should not be happening under such a person.
I know how detailed you are when it comes to the budget, and you have been in Parliament throughout the term of this government, the 2 terms. This is their second term. We have been asking the question of whether or not Parliament had foreknowledge of the expenditures being made. I'll come back to the issue of registration of companies and menstrual table and stuff. But looking through the budgets, do you hold a different opinion as to whether or not there's enough mentioned, there's enough said for expenditure to be made in the name of the people of Ghana?
So the procedure for approving the public purse and for allocating resources for the various ministries and departments are very clear. The executive is required under the Financial Management Act, the Public Financial Management Act, particularly the responsibility is on the finance minister to submit to cabinet what it calls the fiscal strategy document. Now that fiscal strategy document becomes the policy document that defines the implementation of the budget. So in that fiscal strategy document would have been the mention of a cathedral to be built and to allow cabinet to take the decision whether it would apply state resources to construct that cathedral. Now, once that policy is approved by cabinet, it becomes a national policy, and it will have to be submitted to Parliament. Now, remember that that policy of government and its implementation is presented to Parliament in 2 forms. First, we have the fiscal policy itself, or the financial policy and economic policy, which is the one that we normally debate and approve. Okay. So the first approval process we went through last year, when we were struggling to approve, at one point it was disapproved, another time it's approved and disapproved, was just the policy document. So in that policy document, you would have stated that, look, I intend to construct a national cathedral. This is a national policy that is supposed to be funded by the people of Ghana. And we estimate that it will cost so much to construct the national cathedral. That you find within the body of the paragraphs, the narrative paragraphs of the budget. Now, once that is approved, it means that technically we have agreed that the state should fund the construction of a cathedral. The next step is that you then assign monies to it in an estimate for a ministry, department, or agency, or a covered entity. In this situation, you would have found that it would have come as part of the estimate either of the Office of Government Machinery, that is, if you are using the presidency to do it, or it will come under the Ministry of Chieftaincy Affairs, if that is where you think it is properly supposed to be supervised. So it would have been part of the estimates of these institutions or the covered entity that is supposed to implement it. Parliament, through its committees and subcommittees, would have deliberated and brought the person in charge, the minister, the supervising minister, to Parliament to come and explain what is driving the numbers. So things about the architectural designs, how much you are paying for the architect and the services that are being provided to supervise the construction would have been discussed. The bill of quantities that you developed and it was priced to arrive at a certain price for the construction of the project would have been discussed. Whether it is a fixed lump sum contract or it's a variable contract, said that at any point in time, whether price increases or you decide to change the scope, you have the mandate to be able to do that and vary it, said that it moves from $100 million, $200 million, $250 million to $350 million. That would have been discussed and a decision made at committee. That decision would have been whether we accept that this should happen, and if it should happen at the cost that you have stated, or less, or more. Or we disagree and make a recommendation to the body of parliament itself, called the plenary or the chamber itself, for us to approve or disapprove their recommendation. Now, once that is approved, then the estimate for that particular covered entity or ministry or department or agency is approved. Now, when that is approved for a particular ministry, department, and agency, it does not provide a basis for that agency to stand on it unless all the agencies and the ministry's estimates are approved. We put all of them together and pass a law. We call it an appropriations bill that encompasses all the estimates that have been approved. And then after all the estimates that have been approved have been incorporated, we pass that into a law, an act that mandates you to apply the state resources to these entities. So clearly, the approval of a sum of money to construct a national cathedral or a school or a hospital is not done in the narrative paragraphs of a budget statement. Neither is it done at the claims made by a nominee at an appointment committee. It is done first by approving the narratives in the budget as a policy, approving the relevant estimates that are required to implement it by a covered entity, and appropriating it accordingly in a law, an act called the Appropriations Act. Once this is not followed, any expenditure therein is illegal, it's misappropriation, and it is misapplication of state resources. That is simply what it is. There is no big English that you can speak that will take away this law. We as a country agreed under Article 178 or 179 of the Constitution to be bound by the powers of Parliament to decide how the public space is distributed and used. We agreed, again, in the same Constitution and under the Public Financial Management Act, as to the processes that you must follow in order to get approval. So the idea that somebody came to appointment committee and basically revealed an irregularity, revealed a criminal utilization of our resources, is not an approval of Parliament. The fact that something was written somewhere in a paragraph in a budget statement is not an approval of a sum of money allocated to a project and approved in estimates and appropriation. So to that extent, it is quite clear that what has been visited on us is a criminality. And it is born out of the fact that they initially told us it was supposed to be a private enterprise to be funded by the Christian community. There's a video, I can share that video with you, in which the president was boldly telling the whole world that this will not affect the public purse. The only thing that will affect the public purse is that the state will cede its own land to the secretariat. And thereafter, the Christian community and other interested people would fund this. How they managed to now fund it is because they could no longer come clean and decided to hide under the budget to spend the money, even though it is extra budgetary expenditure. And that is illegal.
And with the way things work, what's supposed to be the remedy to this? Because
well,
it's illegal. What do you do?
The remedy is quite clear. The remedy is to go to court. But what is the use of going to court only when you know that you are going to score 7-0? That is the remedy. It is the legislature that is supposed to approve these monies. But when there is a dispute, it is the judiciary that is supposed to remedy it. A judiciary that says that my birth certificate doesn't count towards my nationality You want me to go there? That is a problem. That is a problem. We have mismanaged this country and affected almost every state institution that is supposed to ensure compliance. And it is therefore becoming extremely difficult to seek redress anywhere else. There's no forum that I don't trust in any forum at this point in time to go and seek redress. I have a case against the Ghana Amalgamated Trust and the state since 2018. It has never been called. So I'll go and queue with another case. But that is where we are. But you see, criminal conduct has no expiry date. Criminality has no expiry date. So I'm sure there will come a time when the people of Ghana will begin to have confidence in the judiciary again. And you will see all these ghost cases resurrect. And that is when people will be in their comfortable retirement and will be coming to court with their stakes.
But can the platform of Parliament, does Parliament not provide a forum through which this can be addressed?
Well, so Parliament can seek to call the minister to come and answer. And you know that there's a question tabled for him to answer regarding this same matter of the cathedral. He was unable to attend last time, but he sent a loan of 1 billion to us and was roaming in Dubai, chilling, and pretending that other reasons were why he couldn't come. So, of course, the speaker exercised the powers that he has to say that we are not going to take your financial motion until you address us and you give us the respect that and allow us to have our oversight. So we are aware that he says he will come on Wednesday. So the questions will be put to him. He will provide the answers. The Parliament may take a decision if it is not satisfactory, whether we will constitute an investigation into this matter. But remember that it has to be approved by a majority. Now, unfortunately, we have a Parliament that is not exactly a majority. So that is also another difficult path we have to walk in order to seek the mandate that we deserve to have an investigation into this. So that is where we are now.
But I thought his appearance was solely for the purpose of COVID-19 expenditure.
No, I also know that there were several questions. There were over 11 questions that he was supposed to answer. And I'm aware that one of those questions happens to be the issue of the cathedral.
But as a member of the Committee for Finance, you must be scandalized by some of the numbers you're seeing in terms of money spent. And the suggestion is that those may not be the only monies that have been spent. And your Parliament is very close to the site of the National Cathedral. So you would have at least seen the work that has been done for the money spent.
Yes. What is even more scandalous is that, you see, when you are appointed or you are contracted to provide services towards the construction, design and construction of a facility, your fees are paid based on the milestones that are achieved. So your fees for the design is paid only when you have finished designing the project. Your fees for supervision is structured. So maybe after excavation, I'm supposed to be paid 10% of the value. After substructure, I'm supposed to pay a certain sum of money. What has happened in this case is that the consultant is being paid monies for services that are yet to be delivered. So when you have an architect who has been paid for construction supervision up to a point that we haven't reached, that again is very complicated and illegal. It simply means that the consultant is being paid for no work. And nobody does that. Now, the shifting position of the cost of the project will suggest to me that for all this period that the architect was being paid, they did not have clarity of the scope of work. And so the consultant was still in the process of designing and quantifying the materials and the cost required to implement this project. And so every time that he does the quantities and he's seeing different values, we begin to see a moving target in the cost of the project. That, again, is a serious procurement breach and a serious misapplication of resources, and as a fact, an illegal payment of fees because you basically haven't delivered the job. Now, I was told that the contractors were paid some money after the contractor complained that they are owed monies, and it is the reason they have abandoned site. I monitored a station, a sister station, that said that the contractor was paid after some 25 million seed money, additional seed money was released. And so why is the contractor not on site? You have to find out what was the contract given to the contractor. What were the values in the contract given to the contractor? How much of the work has the contractor issued a certificate to be paid for? And is the payment that he has received consistent with the exposure, the level of work he's done, and the cost of the work for which a certificate was issued? Or was it a mobilization? If it's a mobilization in a government contract, the rules are quite clear. The state must be protected against non-performance and against recovery of those mobilizations. And that will require, at the minimum, a bank guarantee. Have all that been provided? Or we are risking the state money to a contractor, hoping that the contractor will be magnanimous, will be Pope John the Paul and go and do the work, and will not be any criminal who will run away with our money. So these are the questions that we need to address. What was the bid that was put together by David J. and the contractor? Where are the bid evaluation reports that qualify these people both in terms of capacity and in terms of the cost for the value of work being done? Now, when it comes to David J., capacity is not just about experience. Capacity is also whether you are qualified to practice as an architect in Ghana. And we have seen the evidence that at the time this man was awarded the contract, he was not part of the Architect Council of Ghana. This man actually was admitted on the role of architects in Ghana just April. So quite clearly, the man didn't have capacity and the qualification to undertake this project. So these are serious matters. And for all the monies that were paid to David J., he will pay them back with interest at an appropriate time. He needs to know this. And if he is sharing this money with anybody, he should know that those people will not be accounting for it. He will account for it. And he will definitely pay every penny that he has illegally been paid when he did not even qualify to become an architect and to practice in Ghana, let alone to take up such a major project. And in fact, the evidence suggests that David J. is one that has designed and contracted to do a lot of architectural designs in Ghana. So for all those projects, he was not qualified to execute, to carry them through. And appropriate actions must be taken at some point in time for him to pay back. And like I said, criminality does not expire.
Well, let me read to you paragraph 7, I'm sure, of that statement issued by the National Cathedral Secretariat that you've read, because you've already disagreed with paragraph 5 and 6. Paragraph 7 says, given the need for the public to understand this partnership, in particular the rule of the state, all publications from the Secretariat, including the National Cathedral updates sent individually to members of Parliament, include this structure and the rule of the state. Seed money for the National Cathedral as part of the rule of the state in the project should therefore be public knowledge. Were you updated on what was happening? Did you receive this National Cathedral update at any point?
You see, my role as a member of Parliament, my role as a supervisor of the public purse, does not lie in reading useless pieces of papers that are sent to my office. So those are inconsequential. And I want to advise the president, when he has a need to appoint somebody to such a sensitive office, he must go for the right quality. This is clearly somebody who doesn't even understand what he's writing. That if I am supposed to have a budget estimate approved, I am supposed to approve an appropriation. And all of that is not done. And somebody steals public funds, but mistakenly writes it in a document and it is sent to me. Then he would have informed me and sought approval by virtue of that useless work of paper that he sent to me. My good God. And these are the people that Akufo-Addo is working with. He himself is a square peg in a round hole, but for a democracy. It is quite clear that his finance minister is worse than a round hole, a square peg in a round hole. And so what do you expect them to appoint? Birds of the same feathers flock together. It is the reason we are seeing this group of people mismanage us into this crisis. That I am obliged to read some publication from the National Cathedral. Who says I care? Because the accountability process is not that document you have sent to me. At this rate, don't be surprised one day that they will send you a leaflet saying that they spent over $500 million to construct a national heritage shrine. And that the leaflet was sent to my office, and they thought that I had read and I'm abreast with the illegality that they are committing. This is if we have a serious democracy and the rules work, nobody will do the things they have done and still go to bed and sleep soundly.
No,
Let that man who issued the statement know that if he has played any role in approving such expenditures, he should be ready for it at some point in time because he will need it.
I'm asking because I'm also thinking that if you have read that leaflet, shouldn't that have been basis for you to demand for the right things to be done?
To be honest with you, nothing has come to my office. I have not seen any leaflet. I have not read any leaflet. I have volumes of loan agreements to read. I have volumes of Auditor General's reports that have served me. I have volumes of performance reports that are on my table. I have volumes of institutional annual reports on my table. I do not pay attention to a phantom waste of our resource because the laws will catch up with those who are engaged in that illegality. But let it be told that not everybody is interested in the National Cathedral. I, for one, think that at this point in time and in our crisis, God has so many beautiful homes in Ghana to sleep in and does not need an additional cathedral that he may not even visit, especially when it is done under the circumstances and with the full thievery that is going on. God does not reside in properties that were built with stolen money. And I will not be wasting my time on such things.
Well, Honorable, before I let you go, since we're hoping that the finance minister will provide answers to some of the questions you've just raised, but before I move on to the matter of the economy, you raise issues with the Companies Act and some impropriety that you're seeing there. What's your concern? Because they said they've registered it as a private. Let me look for it, and I'm sure let me look for exactly how they describe it. When a question of status, for the avoidance of doubt, the National Cathedral is a national monument and that's a not a private project. Legally, the National Cathedral of Ghana is state-owned company limited by a guarantee and was incorporated under the Companies Act 1963, Act 179 on July 18, 2019. You said they've also engaged in some, in terms of Pastor Mensah Otabill's name being mentioned and others, there are questions to be answered.
So one, the use of public funds for an entity is not defined as an entity registered and owned by the state. Why is it that we are not pushing budgetary allocations to ECG? Why is it that we are not pushing budgetary allocations to several state-owned enterprises, but they are owned by the government? As a matter of fact, giving monies to even private entities that are not owned by the state is allowed, to the extent that the appropriate processes and policy orientation and approvals are sought from Parliament. That is why 1D, 1F, the agencies that are being provided with financial and other support, they are not registered at the Registered General Department as owned by the state, are they? Are they?
Oh, no.
They are not, right? So that's why I'm saying that they should stop putting square pegs in round holes. That this man thinks that immediately an entity is registered as owned by the state, then that so to qualify the government to just go and dig your hands in the national purse and throw at that entity. If we are talking about something be in a national character, then why do we come for appropriations to go and build schools? Are we building the schools for private people? Why do we come to Parliament to seek approval to build hospitals and to build roads? It is because the rules are not about who owns what. The rules are quite clearly about who has the responsibility and the authority to give the approval. And the level of due diligence that the holder of the public purse must be allowed to exercise in coming to a conclusion consistent with yours or inconsistent with yours. And that entity is only one entity, which is Parliament of Ghana. What the President presents through the Minister for Finance and his minister to us are proposals. Let them know. They are proposals. They are not approvals. They are proposals. And Parliament is expected through its oversight over the public purse to approve or disapprove or to modify. So, if they want, they can triple register it as state-owned. It counts for nothing. What it simply means is that they have actually exposed the insincerity. Because the president said this was a private enterprise. You Nicodemously went and registered it into a public enterprise, and you thought that that was enough for you to steal our money to go and fund it. And you are bold enough to come out and say, we swerved you people. We told you we were going to be private, but we swerved you and registered as public, and on the basis of that, we have used your money. I have also read that the Deputy Minister for Finance, Honorable Kuma, has said that they have been funding it from goods and services. Where you are funding it from is irrelevant. Was it approved as part of the goods and services expenditure to be incurred under the office of the president? No. So again, you are providing more evidence that you've been still. You see, we've known these guys to be playing games with our fiscal framework and to be playing games with our expenditure. Now, they themselves are owning up to this level of irregularity and to this level of misappropriation. God save this country. But on the issue of Reverend Dr. Mensa Otabil, I feel very saddened that a whole state institution, as we are now made to believe, put somebody up as a member of the board of trustees, knowing same to be false, but fraudulently misrepresenting this person to us, to mislead us to rely on his reputation, good name, and standing within the Christian community to part with our money to support a cathedral we would never have supported if it wasn't for Mensa Otabil's name being mentioned in there. And you are now saying that Mensa Otabil, when you were deciding that you want to appoint him, he did not proceed to regularize. Who does that? In a normal practice, and I have supervised most of that, working together with company secretaries, you bring the documents and the forms to the appointee or the nominee to the board, he assists him to fill it and he signs it, and you do the legwork and take the administrative processes to regularize his membership of the board, not vice versa. But you expect such a person of a high standing and integrity and at the level of Dr. Mensa Otabil to be roaming around the Registrar General looking for forms to fail to become a member of the Board of Trustees. And you sit there as the administrative head or the chief executive. Doing what? So again, he still doesn't even know how these basic things are done. But be it as it may, if the man has not regularized, what business does he have on your documents and your website being described as a board member. That is fraudulent misrepresentation. It's criminal. And it was done with a purpose. The purpose was to mislead people to waste their money. And this cannot be tolerated in any form. And I just want to make it very clear that that activity and illegality will hurt them forever. But I feel also very sad because Reverend Dr. Mensa Otabil has had his fingers bent before. You recall the Capital Bank. And he allowed himself to be held up as a member of the board when he knew he was not. I am sure he was aware and it came to his attention, but he ignored it. No wonder he attempted to resign from a board membership that doesn't exist. I feel very, very sad. And that is where our country has come to. And it is very unfortunate that we now have this kind of people parading as our government. This is a criminal enterprise.
And let me end on this matter by reading to you the concluding statement. It says, throughout the 65 years of our nationhood, a number of long-term infrastructure projects have often been discussed without a dispassionate analysis of cost and long-term value. The historic and game-changing project, the National Cathedral of Ghana, deserves a more elevated national conversation on its nature, funding, and relevance than has been the case so far. The Secretariat of the National Cathedral commits to this elevated discussion on the project and to an open and transparent process of communication to achieve this. They are saying that what we've been saying so far is not an elevated discussion on what the project will be and the benefits that we'll get from it. What do you say to that?
At this point, when you have wasted our money, you now want us to sit around the table to tell you that we don't want the cathedral. And then you would have sunk 200 million already. I mean, who does this? Look, what he's simply saying is this. We are tempted to steal your money. We have, in fact, stolen part of the money. We intended to steal more, but unfortunately we were caught. I beg you, can we sit around the table so that we'll tell you why we stole and for you to agree that we should continue to now do it without stealing? That is exactly what he has said. And I'm not sure he read it and he understood what he was writing. That having stolen my money and being caught, having deceived me and being found out, you are rather now calling for transparency. Transparency on whose part? Must you be caught before you are transparent with the spending of public funds that you are stolen? And it is so pathetic, that statement. And that's why I said, when you are already deep on the ground, the last thing you want to do is to continue digging, because before you realize you buried yourself. And I think the National Cathedral Secretariat and people like those who issue the statement are simply digging to bury themselves. And we will assist them to do so.
Honorable, you currently have a $1 billion loan facility before. Is it before the Finance Committee?
Well, it was laid in Parliament. The Speaker referred to us, but asked us not to act on it until the Minister has come to account to the good people of Ghana as required by law, especially with the questions that he's been evading. And so, yes, it's before the Finance Committee, but the Finance Committee has not yet scheduled meetings over it.
Close to 400 billion cedis in terms of debt. A lot of people who have heard this have felt scandalized by the fact that government is moving ahead to borrow more. 8 billion cedis, that will definitely add something to our debt stock. Are we right to be scandalized after hearing that?
I think it is worse than that. They have put a loan agreement before us with terms that basically describe Ghana as a worthless country to lend to in the document that they've shared with us. One, government of Ghana is borrowing on a syndicated loan of $250 million. Out of the $250 million, the people say that we have reached a state where our sovereign guarantee is worthless, and that they rather trust the credibility of an insurance company. So we should take up an insurance to cover them. But that notwithstanding, we should put $45 million of the $250 million into almost like an escrow account that they call margin payment. That money will not be available to government of Ghana. But we'll be paying interest on it. We'll be paying insurance on it. And in addition to that, anytime the interest payments are due, which we have already insured, they will only come and take that money to go and pay. So we are actually borrowing $45 million to put into an account to pay for interest that has not even yet materialized. Now, if this is not worse than maize gold, tell me what is. That I am borrowing money to pay you, I'm borrowing money from you to pay interest on the loan, including the one I have borrowed to pay your interest on. In addition to that, I am paying for insurance for the loan, and I'm paying for insurance for the interest payment when the interest payment is already secure and you have asked me to put it into an escrow account. Now, that loan, if you do all the calculations, the effective interest rate of that loan is about 13 to 14% on a dollar loan. Now, if you compare that to the fact that the cedi is depreciated by almost 15 to 18%, it means that on a cedi loan, that is approximately 30% interest you are paying on a cedi equivalent loan. This is pyramid. This is men's gold, and this is armed robbery put together. And that is what they are bringing to us.
The $1 billion facility.
In addition to this, your report is showing that all the taxes you have collected from us, even though we are suffering from January to March, you have spent 83% of that money just to service them, with only 17% available to you to pay wages and salaries and to develop whatever you want to develop. So we are unable to even pay our salaries without borrowing to fund it. And after having borrowed to fund our salaries, we now have to go ahead and borrow again to fund goods and services and to fund statutory funds such as GET Fund, NHIL, Common Fund, and the rest. So for capital, we don't even talk about it. If this is not a scam, what type of government is this? Now, if your problem is because you are financing, you're taking 83% of your revenue, it means that your problem is the debt. Now you are adding on to the debt, adding on onto your debt service, and in the end, you are going to have a situation where you now spend 100% of our tax revenue, including MOMO, e-levy, just to pay for debt service. So, what type of people are we dealing with? We are dealing with people who have just come to loot our country, finish our country, collapse it on our heads, and exit. The structure of this debt is said that not even $1 will be paid by Akufo-Addo throughout the rest of his tenure. So the interest payment that every government pays, they will not pay. The principal, they push it to 5 to you pay it after 3 to 4, 5, 7 years. Even the interest they are not paying. This is the kind of government we have. And it is worse than what you have described. I see this as the climate sponsored men's gold.
You hold very strong views to that. Thankfully, it is before you, so we should expect you to oppose it. Shouldn't we?
Yeah, of course, we will. But like I said, it's not only Adongo. What Adongo says is not what happens. But I believe, and I have already had the confirmation from my leader and confirmation from my ranking member, Honorable Atufo-Addo, that we have to resist it. In my view, I hate these things with passion. And the analysis I have done, just the preliminary analysis I've done, is that I am extremely surprised that international banks such as Standard Chartered Bank and Standard Bank have always been our transaction advisor and arranged the euro bonds that were borrowed into the ditch are now coming to finish up completely and take our carcass back to South Africa and the UK. And these are companies that, if you know them very well, now are moving away from traditional loan arrangement and financing to champion what we call sustainable finance on the African continent. And what sustainable finance does is to say that apart from everything else we are telling me, I want to be sure that your environmental sustainability is good, your social sustainability is good, your governance sustainability is good, and your financial sustainability is good. The structure of this deal with an incumbent 45 million just to pay for debt or interest that they know we may not be able to pay. That we need an insurance company to guarantee this at a fee other than our sovereign guarantee. That they are aware that as a result of the participation of their conduct in securing Eurobonds for us, the market on the Eurobond is close to us. They are now exploiting our vulnerability and the wickedness of the government of the day to take as much as they can take before we collapse. We must know them for who they are. And I have very strong views about Standard Chartered Bank, about Standard Bank of South Africa, with this branch here called Stanbic Bank. At some point, some of us will lead a crusade for Ghanaians to know that there are enemies who want to collapse our system, so we can move away from them. If I had an account with any of these, I will move there immediately and take my money. That is who they are. They are not here to serve us. How can you be preaching and championing sustainable finance and delivering all sustainable finance to the whole country and providing fallback positions that suggest that we are as worthless as any other country that you can find across the world?
But, Honorable, recently some banks in Ghana were downgraded because they are doing business with government. It doesn't make sense business-wise for them to take the position they are taking to safeguard themselves.
Well, the issue is this. At this point in time, what is before me, which I know, is Standard Bank. Now, for those Standard Bank and Standard Chartered Bank, that's what is before me. And I'm here disappointed because if you read the literature on sustainable finance in Africa, you can go past Standard Bank of South Africa and Standard of London. These are the pioneers of sustainable finance. How come they are delivering on sustainable finance to Ghana? So quite clearly there must be something in it. The other one is that for those banks that you are talking about, they've already bent their fingers. It's not for me to tell them. Look, if you bought our 2027 bonds that are maturing, our bonds that are maturing in 2027, the domestic bonds, after Thursday, the yield on those bonds was going at 30%. 30%. What that means is that for the person who bought that bond at 100 Ghana cedis, and the coupon on it was 19.5, the person who is giving you, who is buying it today, is saying that I can only buy it at 60 cedis. So that when they pay me the 19.5 and I express it as a percentage of the 60 Ghana cedis I bought, I make a gain of about 30%. Okay? That already should tell the banks that are holding those bonds that they are losing 40 Ghana cedis per each of the 2027 bonds that they bought. The IFRS, the International Financial Reporting Standards, they are supposed to mark that asset to the market, which will mean that if they bought 2 million of them at 200 million, they will now be reporting 120 million and writing off 80 million. So they are no longer having only a problem with non-performing loans. They now have a problem of impairment of the assets that are sitting on their books as a result of borrowing, lending to government. So they bent their fingers already. I don't have to tell them. Now, 30% up to 2027 will give you about almost 120%. Now, when you sell that bond or you hold it to maturity, government will have to take it back and give you 100 Ghana. Meanwhile, you bought it at 60 Ghana. So you make a capital gain of 40 Ghana per bond. Take 40 Ghana as a percentage of 60 Ghana. You are getting a capital gain in excess of 60%, close to 70%. Now, when you add that 70% to the interest that you have already been paid for 3 years, or the yield over the period, it means that annually, your yield plus your capital gains per year amounts to about 50 to 60% a year. And these were people who were insulting us that were chasing higher returns. That is why they collapsed financial institutions. And now that you are offering people by your mismanagement almost 60% per annum, are you know where the men go? This is the situation we are in. So the banks themselves are now running away from our bonds because they bent their fingers. Why do you think that Standard Bank and all these, if really they want to invest in Ghana, our Euro bonds are trading at 18% yield? Why are they giving us a 13 to 14% effective interest rate? They should go and buy our Euro bonds, which are already on the market, and get 18% yield. Why are they not doing that? They are not doing that because they are the ones already holding those bonds that they deceived us to go and sell. And they are here now to help collapse our country on our heads. And relying on our vulnerability and the wickedness of Akufo-Addo and his government to just collapse our country for us. So that when Akufo-Addo and his government are exiting, they will now come and take us hostage. This is unbelievable, but it is happening in our country.
Honorable, before I let you go, one last issue. This morning, I know the Speaker has already indicated that when it comes to this particular bill, everybody will vote openly. And it's a bill that is still before a committee. The committee is yet to put their paper out in Parliament. But we are seeing a story by the various newspapers being carried by various portals from the national chairman of the MPP, who is saying, well, he doesn't have a problem with LGBTQI issues. If they want to do their thing, let us allow them. What do you say?
Well, thank God he's not the chairman of my political party. If Chairman Okoso-Ampofo said this, I would have been extremely surprised. But when the chairman of the MPP says so, the chairman of the president's party says so, do you now need anybody to come and tell you that that is the view of the president? And so if the president believes in legalizing LGBTQ, he should say so and converse our support for it. But he knows that Ghana, as a moral society, abhors any such conduct. We do not hate the people who practice it, and that is what they are trying to do. We do not hate the people who practice it. We have nothing personal against the people who practice it, but we are against the conduct, not the person. The conduct, but not the person. It is the conduct that is being criminalized and not the individuals that are being criminalized. And that has to be very clear. Whatever the situation is, we will see how many of their people will have the courage to vote for LGBTQ.
Thank you. Thank you for spending time with us this morning.
It is my pleasure. And thank you very much for having me on your beautiful platform. And thank God you are back.
We will bring you in here. You have to come and visit us. We haven't seen you in a long time.
No problem. At the right time, I'll be there.
Okay. Honorable Isaac Adongo is Member of Parliament for Bawku Central. It is on the magnanimity of the people of Bawku Central that he is a deputy ranking member on the Finance Committee of Parliament.